Imagine packing your bags, stepping completely off dry land, and just moving into a thriving, bustling metropolis. Except this city? It's floating right in the middle of the ocean. Back in 2024, the absolute largest passenger vessel in human history took to the seas, and honestly, it completely redefined what it means to take a vacation. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to explore the truly mind-boggling reality of living aboard a colossal vessel where every possible comfort, luxury, and massive logistical hurdle has been engineered to absolute perfection.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. A floating megacity, 2. Your passenger accommodations, 3. Endless dining and entertainment, 4. The invisible support system, and finally 5. The price of the ticket.
Starting off with Section 1, a floating megacity, scale beyond imagination.
To put this sheer size into perspective, let's look at a quick historical comparison. We all know the famous sunken ocean liner of the early 20th century, the Titanic, right? Well, that measured about 269 meters long. Our 2024 record breaker? A staggering 365 meters. I mean, that is longer than 3 full-sized football fields placed end-to-end. And vertically, it towers 72 meters straight up above the waterline. You're basically looking at a 20-story skyscraper tipped on its side and just set afloat. It literally dwarfs the largest military vessels in history.
And when you look at the raw weight, this massive ship tips the scales at around 250,000 tons. But what does that actually mean for us? Well, think of it like this. It's roughly the equivalent of 660,000 average-sized passenger cars. If you somehow tried to build this ship entirely out of cars, you'd need about 12 times the total number of cars found in an average-sized country. It's just an incomprehensible mountain of metal and materials, all perfectly balanced to glide across the sea.
But here is where this cold engineering marvel turns into a really fascinating human story. Because at full capacity, there can be over 10,000 people living, breathing, eating, and sleeping on this vessel at the exact same time. It's not just a boat anymore. It's a self-contained, densely populated microcity. So you have to ask, what is daily life actually like for those 10,000 passengers when they're all sharing a steel island the size of a small town?
Which brings us to Section 2, your passenger accommodations. Let's look at where this city actually sleeps. So this floating city is stacked across 20 distinct decks, or levels. The absolute lowest deck sits completely underwater. That's where they house the massive engines and storage, while the top decks are these sprawling open-air playgrounds. But think about trying to navigate a 20-story building that stretches for 3 football fields. That would be an exhausting physical challenge, right? Well, to solve this, engineers installed a massive, high-speed network of 28 elevators. Because without those vertical highways, your daily commute from your bed just to get to the breakfast buffet would be one serious workout.
And hey, speaking of your bed, the ship boasts around 2,800 passenger cabins, and they're divided into some very distinct tiers. If you're traveling on a budget, you've got cozy interior cabins with no windows. A step up from that gets you a nice porthole view. But the most popular choice, by far, is the balcony cabin. Passengers absolutely love stepping out to feel that ocean breeze or sunbathing in total privacy. Then at the very top of the ship, you've got the ultra-luxury suites and apartments. We're talking multiple rooms, huge living spaces, and even dedicated personal staff. It's literally a complete cross-section of society, all just floating together.
Moving on to Section 3, endless dining and entertainment, the lifestyle.
So, how in the world do you possibly entertain and feed 10,000 people who are technically trapped in the middle of the ocean for a week? The sheer volume of options is staggering. Just imagine smelling the salty ocean air while eating world-class global cuisine from one of the 40 unique onboard restaurants. You could go for a swim in 20 different pools, catch a Broadway-level production in a 2,000-seat theater, or hit the casino, all without ever once stepping off the ship. It is an absolute sensory overload of lifestyle choices.
And this next detail really illustrates the crazy lengths they go to for passenger comfort. Right in the middle of the ship, there's a space dubbed Central Park. And get this, it contains over 20,000 real living plants, including full-size trees. It feels exactly like a city park, complete with winding paths and park benches. They have a dedicated team of specialized gardeners working around the clock just to keep this flora alive, constantly fighting off the harsh, salty ocean air and the rocking of the vessel. It's just this surreal slice of terrestrial nature out on the deep blue sea. But if quiet parks aren't exactly your speed, you can just head up to the top deck. Up there, you'll find a massive 20-meter-high water slide. It literally towers 6 stories above the deck itself. Multiple people can ride down simultaneously on these special tubes at incredibly high speeds. It's a total magnet for thrill seekers, creating this vibrant, energetic atmosphere that perfectly balances out the quiet relaxation of the luxury spas down below.
All right, Section 4, the invisible support system. Let's talk about actually running the city. Because to make all of that seamless luxury possible for 10,000 passengers, there is an entirely hidden world functioning just beneath their feet. It takes an invisible workforce of over 2,500 crew members to keep this city afloat. We're talking about a massive team of sailors, chefs, waiters, cleaners, entertainers, medics, and security guards, and they are working 24/7 in shifting rotations. While the passengers are up enjoying their sweeping balconies, the crew lives in modest, usually shared cabins on the lower decks. They have their own private dining halls and recreation areas that are completely hidden from the public eye.
Also, to support over 10,000 humans, this ship has to generate its own resources. The vessel intakes massive amounts of ocean water and pushes it through these huge onboard desalination plants. Every single day, these machines pump out 500 tons of fresh water. That is enough to handle all the drinking, cooking, showering, and pool-filling needs of a small town totally independently. And simultaneously, massive onboard generators are producing enough electricity to power the entire grid.
But what about the ocean itself? With 10,000 people on board, how do they not get overwhelmingly seasick? Well, the secret is hidden beneath the hull. The ship utilizes massive underwater stabilizer fins. If a wave causes the ship to begin tilting, these giant fins dynamically adjust their angle to counter the roll, actually pushing the ship back to a level position. When you combine that with the sheer weight of the heavy lower hull, these fins ensure that even during severe storms, the rocking is heavily minimized.
Now, powering a behemoth like this requires immense energy. The ship uses liquefied natural gas, or LNG. This is definitely a significantly cleaner alternative to the heavy, dirty bunker fuel older ships used to burn, which drastically cuts down on immediate emissions. However, it's important to note that environmental groups point out that a ship of this colossal size still produces a massive carbon footprint and generates immense amounts of waste overall. So while LNG is a step forward, the broader environmental debate surrounding these megaships is far from settled. Just to finalize the logistics of life at sea, the ship is outfitted with a 24/7 medical center, fully staffed by doctors and nurses, and it even features a helipad for emergency medical evacuations back to land. You've got a dedicated security force monitoring hundreds of cameras to maintain order. High-tech satellite systems are beaming internet and television down to the middle of the ocean. And when it is finally time to dock, the captain relies on precision maneuvering thrusters to slide this gigantic, hulking structure sideways into mega-sized piers with absolute surgical accuracy.
Okay, final section. Section 5, the price of the ticket. Let's talk about buying your way in.
So what does it actually take financially to bring this floating city into existence? Well, the construction cost of this record-breaking vessel is estimated at over 1.2 billion euros. Over $1 billion. You could quite literally build a permanent small town on land for that amount of money. But cruise lines are absolutely willing to make this massive upfront investment because the long-term returns from housing thousands of paying vacationers week after week after week are just incredibly lucrative. And here is what those vacationers are actually paying for a typical 7 to 10-day route through tropical islands or Mediterranean historical sites. Budget travelers can usually secure an interior room with basic food and entertainment included for around $1,000. Your average passenger, maybe booking a nice balcony room, is going to spend somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000. But if you want to experience the absolute peak of luxury in one of those multi-room suites with private dining, you are looking at paying tens of thousands of dollars for a single week. Ultimately, as this quote perfectly captures, this is not just a ship, it is a floating city with thousands of residents, an amazing achievement of modern engineering. And honestly, it's the ultimate demographic equalizer. It perfectly caters to young thrill seekers looking for nightclubs and water slides, families who need safe kids clubs, and elderly travelers seeking quiet spas, fine dining, and gentle ocean views. It's a floating city mathematically engineered to offer something to absolutely everyone.
And the crazy thing, the industry isn't slowing down at all. We are right in the middle of a massive boom. Every few years, a new vessel launches that claims the title of world's largest, pushing the absolute limits of technology, luxury, and maritime engineering. The record breaker of 2024 is truly spectacular,
But it is entirely possible that in just a few short years, an even larger, more complex floating city is going to take to the waves.
Which leaves us with a fascinating yet kind of daunting thought to ponder. As engineers continue to push the boundaries of scale, and as the demand for ever more luxurious, self-contained mega resorts just keeps growing, we have to ask, will these floating cities eventually outgrow the oceans? Will environmental regulations or sheer physical logistics finally put a cap on the size of these vessels? Or are we just seeing the very beginning of humanity's migration to cities on the sea? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we dive into another fascinating topic.